Hello out there. This week we're looking at dropping all of that old baggage you've been carrying around. Hello darling, how are you this week?
Stunningly well, thank you. Although I'd quite like a clarification on that old baggage remark.
Oh, nothing personal. You know, we all have a tendency to drag around old emotional baggage that often we've collected during the course of our lives. Sometimes we've been dragging it around since we were small children.
Oh, that. Yeah, I know what you mean. It serves us no real purpose, but it can have such an impact on the way we live our lives and how we think about ourselves and others.
Certainly does, and it can really drag us down and make us keep repeating the same old unhelpful patterns over and over again, often until we realise what we're doing and break the pattern, or revisit and change the way we feel about something in our past.
Which is helpful in terms of...
Living a happier life as a calmer, more level-headed and confident person.
Yeah, I'm all for that. What do we do to start?
Well, I thought we'd start by quoting from two past case studies. Tina Lollobrigida from Barnstaple and Frederick Asimov from Hackney.
And those are their real names, yeah?
Well, you know, if you have to change people's names to protect their identity, why not do it with a flair?
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
So, Tina felt that she was the only one who ever obeyed rules and regulations, and she frequently got hot under the collar if on occasion she did step over the line. She felt she was the only one who ever got caught and punished. And Frederick, if you recall, had an almost pathological aversion to making decisions about even the smallest of things, in the belief that there was always a high chance of getting the answer wrong, and which would lead to arguments and grief.
Yep, I remember both of these two people, and they're definitely not their names. Anyway, I recall on both occasions they found success only once they'd made the connections you've been referring to.
Yeah, let's talk about Tina first. She found that she was falling out with everyone. She couldn't make a romantic relationship last, and she was never happy at work. She frequently fell out with friends and family members and had no idea why everyone was always on her case when all she felt she ever did was what was expected of her.
Yeah, or what she thought was expected of her.
Possibly. Anyway, after going through a number of different scenarios, it became apparent that Tina actually believed she was a bit of a rebel at heart. For the most part, she adhered to expectations, rules and regulations, but it was a major imposition to her idea of freedom. So, if, or actually more when, she occasionally crossed the line, she tended to do it in a fairly spectacular fashion. To make matters worse, she tended to get very defensive about not being the only one who had transgressed, and on more than a few occasions had happily outed other people to bolster her own defence.
Yeah, not surprising then that she wasn't getting on with those around her, and had a number of ex-friends and disgruntled family members.
Absolutely. Understanding the pattern was easy enough to get her to see, and she did make some good progress, but she always struggled with the notion that rules and regulations were unfair because they only seemed to apply to her, which is where you stepped in, Mr. Barnes.
Yes, I recognised the language of the adolescent and the way she was describing her problem, and helped her to realise that she was acting out teenage frustrations that she'd not resolved years ago. By doing this, she began to recognise that her current frustrations were not the concern of an adult, but an unresolved struggle from her past. We then worked on reframing how she could perceive her problems, allowing the responsible adult to address and resolve the real issues.
So while all the pattern interrupts, the forgiveness exercises and personal confidence work we had done had some impact, we didn't make a real change to Tina until we went back and dealt with the underlying issue from childhood.
Yeah, and as I've often heard you say, there's little point in a sticking plaster over a cut if the bone's broken underneath.
Quite. Now for Mr. Asimov.
Yeah, not his right.
Okay, the person we are calling Mr. Asimov, on the other hand, was also a very interesting case. He came to us about a debilitating resistance he had to being asked to make a decision, any decision, about anything, from what colour shall we paint the lounge to what do you want for dinner. Bigger decisions literally brought him out in a sweat, and he was finding, even though he spent a great deal of his time trying to figure out what answer the other person probably wanted, he invariably got it wrong and felt he was being set up and blamed for things going awry. He said that this had started in his mid-30s and was getting progressively worse. He'd had a fairly toxic relationship break-up around that time, which seemed the logical cause of his troubles, but nothing he did to resolve his feelings over that relationship stopped him feeling like every decision he was asked to make was a direct attempt to make him fail and feel guilty.
Yeah, I recall he tried counselling, therapy, CBT, mindfulness.
Yeah, and then he came to our door, and because of all the work he'd already done, we couldn't help feeling that it wasn't that the various therapeutic methods didn't work, more that there was some hidden cause that hadn't yet been addressed. So you spent some time with him to try and figure out what else could be causing the problem, which was now becoming quite acute.
Yeah, I did. And after we ran through a few scenarios that made him feel this way and looked for a theme, the more we spoke, the more he used fear as a key feeling. So we explored when he could first remember feeling this way, and he had an epiphany.
Ooh.
I thought you'd like that. We tracked the feeling back to a specific childhood experience which had formed the first link in a chain of fear over anything his subconscious linked to this feeling of being cornered and faced with making a decision.
Can see that. So certainly those are two cases that highlight very strongly the links between our past and present behaviour, both of which stretch right back into childhood. But they don't all originate that far back, do they?
No, not necessarily. I can't even say it. Not necessarily. Some of our listeners have volunteered things that have occurred recently.
Yeah, there's one here. Somebody's saying, I used to work with someone who could sometimes be very friendly, but would then all of a sudden just blank me as if I didn't exist. Sounds a bit weird. They go on to say, I had to leave that job after a while because it was too weird, but since then I've noticed that I get more and more angry at people who ignore me.
Yeah, I can definitely see how that would work. There's another interesting one here. I take it very personally when I can't log on to my work server from home.
Lots of people know that one.
I know logically these things happen and often it's nothing to do with me, but I really get upset in case I get into trouble for it.
Now both of these cases are definitely related to adult experiences, but there could also be some link with events that happened long ago that's maybe influenced the way they've reacted to these recent experiences.
Yeah, definitely. You could see how some past experiences could have amplified the more recent issues.
So although these can be quite destructive, many people have no idea why some things affect them so much.
Yeah.
Over the years, we've spent a lot of time working with people to help them let go of the incidents and experiences that cause them to develop negative behaviour patterns, and it really is a bit of a two-pronged attack, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it's really useful to recognise the patterns developing and work on letting it go as soon as you notice it.
Before it becomes a problem.
Yes, and then, if that isn't working, I recommend taking a more historical look at the issue.
Google, Wikipedia?
No. Looking back to past events in your own life, as you very well know. That might be relevant and and taking steps to reframe and rewrite the way you remember these events.
And consequently how they make you feel and react today.
Yep. So, as you say, a bit of two-pronged attack, dealing with how you feel in the moment and letting that go, and if necessary, dealing with how you feel about whatever made you create the pattern in the first place.
Okay, so dealing with issues that are causing a problem right now, like, I don't know, like being stuck in a traffic jam, or people annoying you in the street, or shouting at the telly. You might want to pay attention to your reactions, because every time you react in an animated way to that same trigger, the more of a habit it becomes. And the more of a habit it becomes, the more you reinforce it as a problem. Then before you know it, you are getting angry and raising those stress hormones higher and higher.
Yeah, I'm going to remind you of that the next time you're watching the telly and someone walks into a dark room on their own in a creepy house.
They are so maddening though, aren't they?
Yeah.
Okay, and if we're going to take me as an example, instead of shouting at the telly, which of course is an entirely pointless exercise, I would actually be better off tapping my chest to release those frustrated feelings, as we discussed a couple of weeks ago. Otherwise, I could find myself feeling more and more agitated by things that people do around me in real life, and that really doesn't do anyone any good.
No, I didn't really mean to out you there.
No, but it's a good point. The more we do these things, the more we reinforce them as normal reactions, and they can grow into something very undesirable. So letting them go as soon as you become aware of them is a good idea.
Yeah, so in addition to tapping, is there something else you have in mind to help with current worries and concerns?
Yes, when I have clients with a lot of current anxiety or frustration, I like to talk them through something I call the balloon meditation.
Go on then.
There is a full version of this on the website, but you can try a little taster version of it right now if you like.
Oh, that sounds good. Go on.
Okay, so get comfy, and if it's safe to do so, close your eyes and drift into a relaxed state. In that state, you can imagine yourself walking across a field to a hot air balloon. When you reach it, you can see that although there is space for you to stand inside the basket, all around the edges there are heavy bags of sand. Each one represents a worry or frustration that you have. You step into the basket and start throwing the bags over the side. As you do, the bags burst and the contents dissipate into the atmosphere as they become part of the whole world with all its intricacies and different perspectives. No longer an issue for just you to be weighed down by. The more bags you throw over the side, the lighter the balloon becomes, and the more you can see a brighter, more positive view of the world around you.
Oh, that's rather lovely. And a good way of recognising that we don't have to carry all those bits of baggage around with us.
Absolutely. In this way you can simply let go of things you don't have any control over, or that you simply don't have to deal with by yourself. Even things that might actually need your attention can be released until you are ready and able to deal with them.
Great.
Now, you have a really effective approach for those longer term emotional baggage issues, those ones we're still carrying around from years ago, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Timelining, which is linked to emotional string theory.
Ooh.
Yeah. Well, basically, to save time and energy, when the brain needs to make a decision, it first tries a shortcut by looking into the memory for a similar situation and use the same strategy for dealing with a problem.
So the brain puts our past experiences to good use.
Indeed it does, yes. Unfortunately, the more you revisit the strategy, the more it becomes corrupted over time, being mixed with previous scenarios.
Okay.
And also because we set up a lot of these when we were children, so the emotional responses become less and less appropriate as we age.
Which is why the description of some of these issues can sound quite childish.
Yes, elementary. There you go. So, timeline therapy can be really effective because by linking current problems with earlier events, especially when you can trace it back to a primary event, you can then reframe using the adult perspective on a child's emotion. This then changes the emotional response, helping to change the current adult feeling about the problem.
I see. And we have actually recorded a generic version of you doing a timeline therapy session, which people could listen to.
Indeed we have, yeah.
And that's on the website.
Yep, are you going to give them the address?
Okay, so it is www.mindandbodyworks.com. Remember, bodyworks is spelled with an X at the end, not a KS. You can also find us on Facebook, Mind and Bodyworks, or you can contact us via email, mail@mindandbodyworks
With an
X.com. Do visit us, come and have a look. We put lots of resources on to the website after doing a podcast, so it can really, you've got stuff, worksheets and meditations, and sometimes we record some of Andy's sessions, so we'd be delighted to see you there. Anyway, some patterns are actually quite good.
Oh yeah, I see you making the tea signal there, yeah. Well, that looks like it's time for me to go and make a cup of tea, so I'll sign off and say goodbye to everyone and see you again soon.
Lovely, see you soon. Thank you for listening this evening. Hope it's been helpful, and we'll be back 12 o'clock next Friday. Stay safe and well in the meantime. Bye for now.